Good evening, Yorktown. Tonight is Thursday, October 8th. This is the first meeting of the Yorktown Coalition of Community Safety and Engagement. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I'm going to ask that everyone, if you can, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And if you can all join me in a moment of silence as we remember the brave men and women serving overseas to protect our freedoms, as we pray for the families of 200,000 individuals who have passed this year due to COVID, as we pray for those who are battling COVID, and of course, all of our frontliners, our frontline heroes, our first responders, our police, our doctors, our nurses, our sanitation workers, our grocery store workers, and all those who continue to serve our community during this pressing time. Thank you. Good evening again. As I stated earlier, this is our first meeting of the Yorktown Coalition on Community Safety and Engagement. My name is Matt Slater. I am the town supervisor for this phenomenal community. I am joined tonight by a number of individuals that I am excited to introduce. We're going to start with the task force. We're going to start with the coalition, excuse me. I keep interchanging them. We'll start with introducing members of the coalition. We're going to begin with Paul Cirillo. Paul, are you here?
Yep.
Great. Paul Cirillo is 18 years old. He lives in Mohegan Lake. He recently graduated from Lakeland High School and is now attending Mercy College, where he's studying accounting. And we're thrilled to have Paul serve as our youth representative on the task force, and we appreciate his volunteerism and willingness to serve his community. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, you guys. I'm happy to meet everyone.
Excellent.
Hey, Paul.
We're also joined by Liz Rivera. Liz is a Yorktown resident for over a decade, married for 22 years, and has two boys, ages 21 and 15. She moved to Yorktown after a visit with a friend and fell in love with the community and wanted to raise her boys here. She works for Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, where she is a senior specialist in the commercial operations department. And she feels that this community and our relationship with the Yorktown Police Department is critical and is very happy to join the task force to provide insight as a resident. She hopes that we continue to foster a healthy relationship with the Yorktown Police Department. Liz, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here and excited for joining.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for serving the community. Again, we appreciate it. The next individual really needs no introduction. He is quite a busy individual around town. You see him all over the place. His name's Jim Poulin, currently serving his third term as the president of the Yorktown Lions. He's also a leader for Relay for Life, currently, which now is your 28th year, Jim. Is that correct?
28th year, over $350,000 raised.
Amazing.
Yay.
Absolutely amazing.
Good job, Jim.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to use that as a point, Jim. You want to highlight tomorrow real quick?
Sure. We've got the Paint the Town Purple. We usually do it in May, but this kind of derailed this year. So with the approval and the thanks to the town board and all those, we will be out on Commerce Street. So come on by, drop a couple of dollars in our bucket. I guarantee you 100% of the money we collect goes to the American Cancer Society to help you and anybody else you may need.
Excellent. Jim, thank you. And also, for those who don't know, not only is he an incredible leader civically within our community, but Jim holds a master's degree in mental health counseling from Mercy College, and he's also worked at Mercy College for 10 years as a counselor. Right, Jim?
That's right. So welcome, Paul. Mavericks forever.
That's right. And by the way, I forgot to mention an avid Mets fan. I promised I would mention that one for you.
Proudly, baby.
Next, we have with us Peter Lanza. Peter, for Has over 23 years experience in property and casualty insurance industry, specializing in personal and commercial insurance. He's currently vice president of the personal lines department at the BNC Insurance Agency in Rye Brook, New York. He holds a bachelor's degree also from Mercy College and resides in Yorktown Heights since 2004 with his wife and 2 children. The hallmarks of his success are professional, responsive, and friendly service. Peter served on the board and executive board of the what is this? The IIAWC for 9 years. Did I get that right?
Yes. Yep.
Great. And during his tenure, he co-chaired the organization's largest event, Education Day, and was top partner chairman in his last 2 years. Peter's a member of the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce and currently serves on the executive board as vice president. And in his free time, which it doesn't sound like you have much, Pete enjoys his classic cars and coaching his son's baseball team. Pete, thanks so much for participating.
Thank you. Glad to be here tonight. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Excellent. Next, we have Tony Reynolds. Tony and her husband bought their house in 1995. They've been here for 25 years. The eldest son just graduated from Yorktown High School, go Huskers, and she has 2 younger boys. Her boys played and continue to play travel soccer for the Yorktown Youth Soccer Club, a great club that I also spent a lot of years with. So needless to say, she's always driving, as she likes to say.
Mom in the car.
He works from home as a payroll HRIS specialist and originally worked with Alliance Bernstein in the White Plains office for 14 years until their recent move to Tennessee. She hasn't held any positions within any groups in Yorktown, so she's very excited to be a part of this coalition. Tony, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Next, we have, of course, Rabbi Robert Weiner. Rabbi Weiner currently serves as the spiritual leader of Temple Beth Am in Yorktown Heights. He holds dual master's degrees in social work and Jewish communal service from the University of Michigan. Rabbi Weiner conducted his, I'm going to say this word wrong, Rabbi. Rabbinic? Is that right? Did I get that?
That was good.
Right?
Yeah.
Rabbinic studies at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion at their Israel, LA, and New York campuses. In rabbinic school, Rabbi Weiner received honors and awards for his work in liturgy and ritual. He currently lives in Yorktown Heights with his wife, Ellen, who's known me since the 4th grade, and 3 blessed children, Emma, Rachel, and Joshua. Rabbi, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I failed to mention, Rabbi is also head of the Interfaith.
Yeah.
Interfaith. Is that a coalition?
Council.
It's a council.
Coalition. Council.
Know that.
I think it's a task force. I think it's a task force. I also, one bit of clarification for everyone at home. My wife knows Supervisor Slater not as a fellow student in the 4th grade. I want to be clear. All right.
Oh, gotcha.
He was across the hall. He was across the hall.
I also wanted to make mention that it's an honor to be a part of just this coalition and to be a part of some things to make this town better. It's extremely important for all of us in the town to put in some service in making this town better. The last thing I want to say is I want, as a shout out, my son's bar mitzvah is this weekend. So if I look a little exhausted, that's because we've been working hard in the Weiner household. So we're super excited.
Awesome.
Household tub.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
It's great news. Next, I'm happy to introduce Rosemary Panio. Rosemary Panio and her husband, Rocco, have been residents of Yorktown for 49 years. Rosemary has served the community in a number of facets, including on the Conservation Board, the original Recycling Committee, the Board of Directors and Board, the Board of Directors and Foundation Board for the New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital Center and the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce. Currently, Rosemary serves as the chairperson of the Advisory Committee for the Town of Yorktown and is an active member of St. Patrick's Church. Rosemary, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you all doing? It's a pleasure to see you all.
Good, Ro.
Hi, Rosemary.
Pleasure to see you.
How are you doing?
The original Recycling Committee. I can't wait to hear about that.
Oh, it was fun, believe me.
What year was that, Rose?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. 30 years
Yeah,
ago,
right.
35, 40 years ago, who knows?
2019.
I don't think so, no.
It was before
We said the original.
Yeah, yeah.
Ro, I was trying to help you out there.
I know, you're so kind.
Was it a task force?
I was 12 when I got on it.
There you go.
It's coalition.
And lastly, I'm honored to be here with our police chief, Robert Noble. I'm going to explain this later, but there are two mandated individuals to be a part of the task force, or the chief elected officer for the town, which would be me, and the chief of police. And so partnering with the chief has been an incredible experience. And I'm proud to provide a brief bio to highlight his incredible experience. So Chief Noble began his law enforcement career as a police officer in the city of White Plains in 1993. He subsequently transferred to the Yorktown Police Department and began his YPD career on April 6, 1994. While a patrolman, he was awarded the Meritorious Police Duty Award and several commendations from his supervisors. Chief Noble was promoted to the rank of sergeant on February 20th, 2001. His responsibilities included training, directing, supervising, and evaluating personnel in their assigned duties. While a sergeant, he was assigned as the assistant to the patrol division commander in 2004. Chief Noble was promoted to the rank of lieutenant on April 6, 2005. He would serve as the patrol division commander, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the patrol division from 2005 to 2015. In 2015, Chief Noble was assigned as the operations commander, overseeing the Detective Bureau and coordinating all Yorktown Police Department in-service training programs. While a lieutenant, Chief Noble was assigned as the program manager for the Yorktown Police Department Accreditation Program, successfully coordinating the achievement of accreditation in 2006, 2011, and in 2016. In 2015, he attended and successfully completed the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Seminar held in Princeton, New Jersey. He has served as president of the Yorktown PBA in 1998. While a member of the PBA, he served as a trustee from 2000 to 2004, on the negotiations committee from 1996 to 2005, and was the Toys for Tots coordinator from 1996 to 2004. Upon joining the Yorktown SOA in 2005, he served as the president of the association from 2005 to 2013. Community involvement includes many years of service in the Shrub Oak Athletic Club, SOAC. Chief Noble served as the director of the SOAC girls basketball program for 6 years. He was an SOAC board member and coached several different youth sports over a 15-year period for SOAC. Chief Noble is a member of the Alliance for Safe Kids Community Advisory Board. Fraternal club affiliations include the Westchester County Emerald Society, the Yorktown Elks Club, and the FBI Mid-Atlantic Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. He was recently awarded a Paul Harris Fellowship by the Yorktown Rotary Club.
Wow.
Incredibly impressive.
And I'm also a Mercy College graduate as well.
There's a theme here.
I'm telling you. I can't make this up.
Most definitely a theme that I wasn't expecting.
Are you a Mets fan?
Are you a Mets or a Yankees fan, or do you not want to answer that question?
Well,
choose wisely.
I'm a long-suffering Jets fan, so I'm no front runner. Let's leave it at that.
Sold.
I also want to introduce several of our elected officials who've joined us tonight. We have our Councilwoman Alice Roker. We have Councilman Tom Diana and Councilman Ed Lachterman. Do we have Councilman Patel on the phone? Is that the phone number I see there, Diana?
That's not his number.
That's not his number. Okay. And by way of introduction, I want to personally thank our town clerk, Diana Quast, for helping organize this coalition and the Zoom events that we are going to be having to make sure that we comply with Executive Order 203, which is what we are here to do. Chief, do you want to introduce your command staff, or do you want to wait until you begin your presentation?
No, I'd love to. Why not? Seated in his vehicle is Lieutenant James Graham, who was good enough. He's on vacation, and to be part of this and support support all this, I thought it was important for everybody to meet my command staff. Lieutenant Graham's a lifelong Yorktown, resident, graduated from Yorktown High School, and wants nothing but the best for this town. And he's, like I said, he makes my job easier every day. As does Lieutenant John DiUlio. Lieutenant Graham oversees our detective division. I'm going to go through the organizational chart as we get along, but he does oversee our detective division and all in-service training and a lot of our policies. Lieutenant John DiUlio, also just about a lifelong resident, graduate from Yorktown High School. And again, he was in patrols. He was patrol division commander for me until recently. Now he's a staff division commander, and he oversees all of our desk officers, dispatchers, civilians, FOIL requests. A lot of different things go into that job. But again, a reoccurring theme. He makes my job much easier, and just day-to-day operations at the police department streamlines them very efficiently. Lieutenant Justin Foley should be on here as well. Lieutenant Foley was promoted during when COVID hit. He was promoted this March. It's been baptism by fire for Lieutenant Foley, but he is also a Yorktown grad. Family's been in town a long time. He brings a lot of experience to the job. He began his career in the NYPD, former canine officer for Yorktown Police Department. He's done a tremendous job. He was assigned patrols when he was promoted to lieutenant. And I tell you what, he's in the 7 months he's been at it, he's done a tremendous job. So again, when you surround yourself with good people, you get good results. And I'm very proud of my command staff. I couldn't ask for any better. Also on this, it should be our PBA president. I think Tommy Nadorsky and our vice president, Brian Shanahan, they are on. And, as part of this discussion, so you all know, where I stand on this, I look at my position as building relationships, and it's building positive relationships, not only with the community, but the people that I work with. If we're going to hold people accountable, they've got to have proper training, and they've got to know where their administration kind of stands and where we guide them. And part of that is having an outstanding relationship with the PBA. And, under Tommy Nadorsky, I've been blessed to have very good PBA presidents since I've been chief of police. And Tommy and Brian, we've all really had to pull together during COVID and this time of civil unrest. And like I said, I'm blessed to have the team that I have. And I think that, you'll see that the town is the beneficiary because, we don't bat 1,000, but we do a tremendous job in this community, keeping it safe and, treating people how they, we treat people as we want our families to be treated. We try to, like I said, we don't bat 1,000, but we come pretty close. And, empathy, compassion, professionalism, I think it's demonstrated from the top on down. And where the rubber meets the road are the officers that go out there and answer the calls. And I think if you meet them, you come away impressed with any conversation you would have. So that's, it's unscripted. It's, this is just as honest and very honest. That, I'm proud of my staff, and I think it'll show throughout this process.
I'm proud of you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I want to begin just as a review of EO 203, how we got here, what the purpose of this coalition is, where, I'm going to go through a presentation that I made to the town board a few weeks back, and then I'm going to hand it over to Chief Noble. And Chief Noble is going to discuss, he's got a presentation about several topics that I think are important for the panel to be educated on, for the public to be educated on. I can say definitively that no one, including myself, has seen Chief Noble's presentation, so we're all going to be educated together, which I think is great. And so this all stems from the frankly heinous death of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. And the town board unanimously and vocally passed a resolution condemning the death of Mr. Floyd and the tragic events that took place that led to his death. And Chief Noble sat here in the boardroom with me, also condemning the actions taken by the Minneapolis police officers involved, and made some very clear statements about accepting or not accepting the behavior that was shown, unfortunately, to Mr. Floyd. And so since then, obviously, there was a lot of public outcry nationally, across the country, demanding, frankly, I think what we're doing here, which is a conversation and a review and a conversation about our police departments, our individual police departments, and finding ways to foster a dialogue with all aspects of our community, and to make sure, frankly, that we have a police department that properly serves our community. And that's part of the, I think, focus that we are tasked with here today, is fostering that dialogue. And this is a dialogue that we're going to have over the next several weeks and months. The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, signed Executive Order 203. The executive order, essentially, which he signed on June 12th, 2020, puts into motion this coalition, and some of the things that he specifically states within EO 203 is tasking each local government entity with a police agency operating with police officers as defined under 1.20 of the Criminal Procedure Law, must perform a comprehensive review of current police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, practices, and develop a plan to improve such deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices for the purpose of addressing the particular needs of the communities served by such police agency. So again, we're just specifically about the town of Yorktown and the town of Yorktown Police Department. That's our focus. That's the conversation. And I understand, frankly, I think we're going to see, and what we're going to learn is that we are, as a community, for lack of a better word, spoiled, because we do have a police department that does a terrific job, that serves this community with dignity, that serves this community with incredible, you heard the word, empathy and care. And unfortunately, for others, they may not have a police department that does that. But regardless, we are here to comply with Executive Order 203, which also tasks the chief executive of each local government, which I pulled the straw on that one, shall convene the head of the local police agency and stakeholders in the community to develop such a plan, which shall consider evidence-based policing strategies, including but not limited to use of force policies. I think that's something that we're going to hear about tonight. Procedural justice, any studies addressing systemic racial bias or racial justice in policing, implicit bias awareness training, de-escalation training and practices, law enforcement assisted diversion programs, restorative justice practices, community-based outreach and conflict resolution, problem-oriented policing, hotspots policing, focused deterrence, crime prevention through environmental design, violence prevention and reduction interventions, model policies and guidelines promulgated by the New York State Municipal Police Training Council, and standards promulgated by the New York State Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, something that I mentioned before when reading Chief Noble's biography. I'm going to just, again, share my screen. Am I able to do that, Diana? Do I have the capability of doing that?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. If I can figure out.
I need the PowerPoint from Robin.
Yep. Sure. Okay. So I just want to go through this one more time. Again, this is the same presentation I gave for the board, but I don't think it hurts repeating ourselves because there may be people listening today who weren't listening during that presentation. And so I'm happy to walk through this again. And as I stated earlier, this is all to comply with Executive Order 203. The town of Yorktown was, I think, very adamant and clear as a town board that we had all intentions of complying with Executive Order 203. As I stated, it requires a a comprehensive review of current police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. Again, that applies to the Town of Yorktown Police Department within the Town of Yorktown. Again, convening of a task force, as I stated earlier, as dictated by EO 203, the chief executive is the one who convenes said task force. The chief of police is the only other mandated member, and also community stakeholders. So one of our objectives is to consult with members of the community, which is what we're here doing, not-for-profits, faith-based community groups, the local office of the district attorney, and local public defenders. And I talked about this earlier while reading the executive order. Again, we're reviewing specific policies as they apply to the Town of Yorktown Police Department and how the Town of Yorktown Police Department applies those policies and practices during their day-to-day interaction with the residents of our town. And I am a big fan for those, I think, who've been paying attention and those who partnered with me in the past. For me, it comes down to process. That's what I've been tasked with, is ensuring an inclusive process. And so part of that process includes transmitting a report, a signed certification form to the director of the Division of Budget by April 1st, 2021. That's when this coalition's duties and responsibilities will cease and we meet our objective. All meetings, like I said during my presentation originally, will take place virtually. We are ensuring that they are all open to the public. They're being currently broadcasted on our government access channels on both Optimum and Fios. It's also being streamed live on the town's website. So again, to make sure we're clear, when we say open to the public, we have provided an abundant opportunity for anyone in the community to participate in this forum. We've also advertised it. Thank you to, again, Diana Quas in the town clerk's office. We've advertised it in the newspapers. We've put out press releases. We shared it on our social media channels. And here we are again, and we will continue to do that for the subsequent meetings as they are scheduled. Our minutes, again, thanks to our town clerk's office, will be recorded for all meetings. Again, as I stated earlier, thanks to Diana Quast and her staff, and they will be included as part of the town's final report, which will be transmitted to the director of the Division of Budget. And just to reemphasize again, the focus of all of these discussions will be on the Town of Yorktown. And so we do have a timeline of activity. We are now obviously in the first box, which is the task force formation and commencing our listening sessions, which if I can take a step back, there was a guidebook that was released by the governor's office, which proposed a similar timeline. So we are working off of that timeline. So we will be having our listening sessions. Then we will begin as a coalition drafting a proposed plan to identify any shortfalls that we may discuss and identify, and what the remedies for those improvements will be. That plan will then be publicly disseminated for review, and we will once again open it up for another round of public comment on that report in the month of February. And ultimately in the month of March, though, it will be ratified by the town board, and again by April 1st, transmitted to the Division of Budget. There's a typo on this, and I apologize. Division of Budget by April 1st. So we are on October 8th. Our next listening session will not be on October 15th. I apologize. That should say October 22nd. Again, my apologies. We will have our next working group on November 12th and another listening session on November 19th. Once we are through with the session on the 19th, the coalition will decide if we want to continue with another work group in December, another work group and listening session in December, or begin drafting the plan, the report and plan. We introduced you tonight to our coalition members, very diverse coalition in so many different ways that I think is a great representation of as many aspects of our community as we can find, which we are very proud and thank them again for their service to our community. And then we have our invited community participants and invited community partners. And these are organizations that we feel can provide a very unique perspective for this panel. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all of them at some, actually we're missing a few on here, also the Yorktown Central School District, as well as the Lakeland Central School District will be participating. So I apologize for some reason they're not on the slide. But
And
so
we need the local DA's office.
And the local DA's office, correct. I apologize. And so those are some of our, again, invited community partners and participants that we're going to begin hearing from tonight. We will open it up for a statement based on tonight's presentation for any one of those individuals who are here on behalf of those invited community participants to say a few words. And that's the background of how we got here. That's the objective of what we are doing here. Again, fostering a dialogue about the police department here in the town of Yorktown and reviewing their procedures and policies and implementation. And that's where we're heading, which at the end of the day is a report and plan transmitted to the Director of Budget by April 1st of 2021. Are there any questions from the members of the task force before I hand it off to Chief Noble? No? Okay.
If you would, Supervisor, can you go back to the screen that you had the list of topics that we needed to discuss? Because I just wanted to point out to the coalition that
this one right here?
We're going to discuss use of force policies this evening.
Hold on one second. There you go.
Use of force. We're going to talk implicit bias awareness training, de-escalation, law enforcement assisted diversion programs, and community-based outreach and conflict resolution. All 5 of those topics we're going to discuss this evening. And like I said, when I do begin, if anybody has any questions, please just ask. We'll do the best. I'll do the best I can to give you a good answer. If I can't, like I said, my command staff is here and they can jump in, if I'm leaving anything out. But the goal here is to work towards making us as good as we can be, and we're all about that. So with that being said, Supervisor, I'll turn it back over to you. But I just thought this screen was important to look at because that's what we're going to do tonight.
Excellent. All right. If there's no questions from the coalition, then I'm actually going to just pass it right back to you and we can begin the presentation.
All right. And before we do, I need to thank Robin Steinberg for all of her help with this. This doesn't get done as cohesively and as easy to get through as I think tonight, easy to understand as tonight could possibly be without Robin's help. So thank you very much, Robin, for your assistance. All right, so let's let it roll. Listen, before we begin, if any type of fly lands on my head and I don't see it, please somebody give me a heads up on it. Thank you.
Don't let anybody whack him, please.
No.
All right, so like I said, you heard my bio, and thank you very much for being a part of this coalition. It's not it's not an easy task. This is, like you said, it can be controversial, but I think you'll see that Yorktown Police Department, we do things, and we've always done things, quite well. And it's policies, procedures, and most importantly, it's having the right people. And we certainly do have that. Quality character people in our building, and we work very cohesively with the town board, who are here tonight, and they're positive and supportive and always willing to listen. They ask very good questions, and like I said, it's having those positive relationships that allow us to serve this community at a very high level. So with that, we can start going through the PowerPoint. So it begins and ends with our principal mission at the Yorktown Police Department, and that's to preserve the rights of citizens and reduce fear in the community through the prevention of crime, protection of persons and property, the maintenance of order in public places, and to anticipate and respond to events that threaten public order and the protection of life and property. Fairly straightforward, easy to understand. Our code of ethics, I know our pictures are basically blocking this thing, but I can read it right here while y'all look. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve the community, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, and will behave in a manner which does not bring discredit to me or my agency. I will maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn, or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in the thought and deed in both my personal and official life. I will be exemplary in obeying the law and regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, political beliefs, aspiration, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime and with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the police service. I will never engage in acts of bribery, nor will I condone such acts by other police officers. I will cooperate with all legally authorized agencies and their representatives in the pursuit of justice. I know that I alone am responsible for my own standard of professional performance and will take every opportunity to enhance and improve my level of knowledge and competence. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement.
Very good. Very nice.
And that's at the core, for all of us in law enforcement. It's a very powerful oath. And you don't get into this line of work, the most common answer is, well, I want to help people. You find out pretty quick if people are really sincere about that and they want to help people. That's an easy thing to see. So again, I'm blessed to have a lot of good people, surrounded by a lot of good people who adhere to that oath and do a very good job. Next up is our Yorktown Police Department organizational chart. This way you have an idea of how we're structured and staffed. Obviously the chief and 3 lieutenants that serve directly under me. There's 1 patrol division commander, 1 operations officer, 1 staff division commander. Patrols obviously is uniform patrols. He oversees our sergeants, most of them anyway. We have 8 sergeants. 1 sergeant serves at the leisure of the operations officer. He is our detective bureau sergeant, Lieutenant Graham. Sergeant Rapisarda serves under him, but 3 lieutenants, 8 sergeants. Our detectives, we have 4 general bureau detectives. They investigate serious crimes, most felonies and other technical crimes. We have 2 detectives who are youth officers or juvenile officers. One of those teaches DARE in our middle school in the 8th grade. And we have 1 detective, he is a detective because he earned that assignment. It is with him only. He serves directly under the staff division commander, Detective Bill Gordonier. Bill's been with us for 30 years, and the work he's done, and I'd be remiss to say he assisted me greatly with data that I needed to give to you, everybody here. That is not a detective position, but the body of work that Bill Gordonier put forth, the town board agreed that he was worthy of a detective position and assignment. And I was proud to see that happen.
I was very, very, appreciative of the board making a very good decision in giving him and awarding him that gold shield. There's one traffic or road safety officer. Unfortunately, we're down positions that weren't refilled. We used to have a squad of special patrol operations. They were traffic officers. And with the advent of school resource officers, and as you see on the screen, we have 7 of them, most in the county, including Westchester County Police Department. That is something that I am especially proud of. Our relationship with the Yorktown Central School District and the Lakeland Central School District.
Zoom, do you want to listen to it or no?
We do an outstanding job in those schools. Otherwise, we would not be in those schools. We're building positive relationships in those schools every day. And you'd quickly see if that was not the case. And to have those school resource officers is just an outstanding achievement for our agency. The newest ones were 3 elementary school resource officers in the Lakeland Central School District. You want to talk about changing a narrative? Hopefully these kids will be exposed to a Yorktown police officer from kindergarten, 1st grade, all the way up, and they'll be able to form their own decisions about police officers based on their own relationships, rather than watching TV and watching the ugliness that you see on the news every night. That's taking that broad brush right away. And hopefully these young minds will be able to, like I say, speak to some of our officers who are in the schools who do a very good job there. The crime initiative officer that you see, that's basically our narcotics officer. He works with the Northern County Task Force in conjunction with the Westchester County Police Department. We share resources, and while I'd like to have more, the officer does do a very good job in trying to uncover narcotic activity, in our town. So those are patrols essentially right there that you see, all the sworn personnel. Lieutenant DiUlio, obviously the staff division commander. He oversees the 3 dispatchers, 3 office assistants, our community service worker who is / animal control officer, and then the maintenance mechanic and the laborer. Lieutenant DiUlio oversees our building and grounds, and he really he assists me greatly. Basically, takes over and helps present the budget with me to the town board. So, are there any questions on the organizational chart of our agency?
No. I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any social work, and how do you bring in the mental health aspect to your organization?
Well, that's a very good question. We do have a mental health liaison with St. Vincent's. So we do have that liaison, but the issue with having that liaison with St. Vincent's is down in Harrison.
Right.
So you know as well as I do, Jim, that when we get a call, one call that we had recently was from a family who had a young man, altered mental status, and he had a large butcher knife in his, in the residence. And that's where, police are expected to be a jack of all trades. And I'm proud that, my staff, the officers that responded that day did all the right things: time, distance, de-escalation, and just did an outstanding job. We can have, if you'd like, at the end, we can have more of a conversation, because that is something, that I have my own ideas about regarding, assistance with mental health. But does that suffice right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll be happy to jump in, at the end, and we can roundtable that type of thing, because I do have ideas and suggestions regarding mental health. Because I'll tell you what, this day and age, for my cops who go in these houses and answer these calls, and they're very, very complex and difficult calls for service, mental health and domestic violence calls for service are dangerous, unpredictable, and just It's not a perfect science. It's not like you see in the movies. It's every situation is unique, troublesome, and that we handle it as well as we do is a testament to our officers.
Thank you.
Yep. So Robin, if we could go to the next chart. There you see it. That is our organizational chart. If you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, and the window of us is covering the gold or orange color, that's our staff division. Like I said, the civilian personnel that work at the Yorktown Police Department. But again, this is pretty easy to read, and the flow and supervision at every level. All right. I don't think, was there any questions?
No.
Okay. So we'll get right into the use of force, which, like I said, this is what brought us here. This is what really brought to the table the conversation that we're having this evening. And I want to go through our policies, share some data, and obviously answer any questions that you may have. Okay. Oh, excuse me, Rob, can you go back one slide? Yeah. As you can see, the revisions have been coming with more frequency. If you look at the bottom, November of 2018, November of 2019, and we're also revising it this year as well. So now we can go forward. Purpose: to establish the policy and procedure of the department and use of physical force, including deadly physical force, as described in General Order 3.01. Let me get to this so I can see it. Such force is objectively reasonable in the performance of our official duties. Is there any way to get the picture screen off of there, Robin? Because I'm getting cut off on this.
Right. So if you look at the top of your picture screen, there are boxes.
I can minimize it?
You can actually, you can minimize it so you don't see.
I just see it now. Bingo, I'm good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Officers are expected to use only such force as is objectively reasonable in the performance of their official duties. As you will see as we go through these slides, objective reasonableness or objectively reasonable is going to pop up quite frequently in our policy. That's the standard that we are judged by. Members of the department may only use the level of physical force necessary to effect lawful objectives in the performance of their duties within the limits established in Article 35 of the New York State Penal Law and the standard of objective reasonableness established by the United States Supreme Court in Graham versus Connor. It is the responsibility of each member of our agency to be aware of the requirements of each of the foregoing and be guided accordingly. As the Supreme Court has recognized, this reasonableness inquiry embodies allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation. Again, that's the standard that we have to meet. And it allows for, like I said, the understanding that, again, these circumstances are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. You have to make split-second decisions, and you hopefully have to be right. And that's why we train. So we train as much or more than any agency, I believe, in this area. And it's all about muscle memory and putting our officers in the best possible position to make those good decisions. The procedure: generally, members may use force in the performance of their duty when it is reasonably believed to be necessary to prevent the commission of a breach of the peace or other unlawful act, prevent a person from injuring him or herself, effect the lawful arrest of persons resisting arrest or attempting to flee from custody, in self-defense or in the defense of another person. If physical force is used, the officer shall, as soon as possible, evaluate the need for medical assistance and, if necessary, arrange for such attention. Only issues and/or approved equipment will be carried on duty, and used when applying physical force, except in an emergency when the officer may use other resources at his or her disposal. Does anybody have any questions thus far?
No?
All right. And I think it's important, like I said, to see that it is addressed that we expect our officers, if they do use force, to get that medical attention as soon as it is safe to do so.
Chief, quick question, and you can say that, all right, it's going to come up later on, is what about the intensity of the force or the type of force that's used in any of these situations? Does that get addressed in policy as well, like
yes,
standard operating procedures and things of this sort?
We're going to get there, Rabbi. Yes, it's going to come up. Objectively reasonable. An objective standard used to judge an officer's actions. Under this standard, a particular application of force must be judged through the perspective of a reasonable officer facing the same set of circumstances without the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, and be based on the totality of the facts that are known to that officer at the time that the force was used. So again, that's that objective reasonableness that I discussed. That is a standard policy. As was mentioned by the supervisor, we are an accredited agency in New York State. Only 29% of police agencies in New York State reach that standard of accreditation, and our use of force policy has consistently met or exceeded the DCJS, Division of Criminal Justice Services of New York State, their use of force standards. Any questions about this? Okay.
Hey, Chief. Chief, quick question. When you say meet or exceeds, can you just dive a little deeper into that to make sure we understand what that means? If you can go back one slide, Robin.
I don't know how I could go through that, Supervisor.
I didn't know how they measured it, so that's why I was curious. My apologies.
Yeah, this is the standard.
Got it.
Our use of force policy technically is more restrictive than Article 35. It generally makes it easier for our officers to apply. And what you will see here is our policy, which, like I said, it meets or exceeds any standard, that is out there.
Got it.
Deadly physical force, which I will go into, that's General Order 3.01, but the definition is here. Physical force which, under the circumstances in which it is used, is readily capable of causing death or other serious physical injury. Physical injury is the impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. Serious physical injury is physical injury which creates a substantial risk of death or which causes death, or serious or protracted disfigurement, protracted impairment of health, or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily organ. And regarding physical injury, and you'll see our use of force worksheet and how we document use of force. If anybody complains of any type of pain, not even an impairment of a physical condition or substantial pain, if they complain of pain, we document that on our use of force form. Next slide. Unreasonable force. Force which can be reasonably believed to be clearly beyond that which is objectively reasonable under the circumstances to accomplish a lawful objective. I'm losing my voice, I'm sorry. And this next one is important. Duty to intervene. Any officer present and observing another officer using force that he or she reasonably believes to be clearly beyond what is objectively reasonable under the circumstances shall intercede to prevent the use of unreasonable force if and when the officer has a realistic opportunity to prevent harm and promptly report his or her observations to a supervisor. Does anybody have any questions on these?
No, very clear.
Like I said, we talk about, in our police department, it's a conversation we have quite a bit at roll calls. And it's all about supporting, each other out there in the field. And if somebody's getting a little hot or there's somebody getting under one of the officer's skin, that partner is supposed to step in there and take over that call and make sure we have a very sound resolution. And like I said, the data will show that we do that. We de-escalate every day. And you know what? That duty to intervene, it's been policy, and is a policy that we follow. Use of force incident reports. And our incidents, this is how we count them. If two officers used force on the same incident and on the same individual, this is counted as two use of force incidents. It'd be easy to just count them as one. We actually count them, if two officers, one incident, we count it as two use of force incidents. If they both use force and one used a taser or a pepper spray, we count that as three use of force incidents. So again, we document these very, very well. Any questions?
No, very clear.
Okay, next slide. So I'd like to discuss these numbers because when we talk about de-escalation, we do it every day and we do it well. Class 1 use of force, the non-injurious use of or an accidental discharge of a firearm. This classification will also include the destruction of any animal. Now, these numbers are from January 1st, 2016 through June 13th, 2020. Why 2016? That was when I took over as chief of police and this administration came to bear. And here we are at present day. So it goes through January of 2016 through June 13th of 2020. Class 1, 180 incidents in the 4.5 years. Unfortunately, we live up here in the country. There's a lot of deer struck by vehicles and a lot of animals in distress that need to be put under, basically. Rabid raccoons, rabid skunks, you name it. That's what these incidents are. There have been no accidental discharge of firearms. 180 incidents. 61% of our use of force incidents are class 1. And all we're doing is humanely and safely dispatching animals. Class 2, the injurious, visible or non-visible use of non-deadly force. 12. In 4.5 years, 12 people complained of injuries. None of them were broken bones or anything that required hospitalization. If somebody we arrest or deal with requests to go to the hospital, we send them. But again, of all the use of force reports, 12 of them. In that time, we've made over 1,500 arrests. Again, only 12 incidents of injurious use of non-deadly force. And that is basically, yes?
This is really some wonderful information. I just need a clarification. And that is that this is documenting, because I'm just a little confused. Is this documenting when someone made a complaint?
No.
Or is this your officers documenting, I used force that was non-deadly in this arrest or something like that?
We document our use of force. There's a form that you will see. And if somebody complains of pain, that's class 2. It's designated as class 2.
Got it.
So that's exactly what that is. If they wind up, if somebody resists and somebody, is non-compliant and we have to wrestle them or use, taser or pepper spray and they get scratched up or, bruised, we document that and we'll document that.
Dave,
yes.
May I just interrupt a second?
Yep.
These use of force incidents, they also get filled out when we use force on non-arrest situations. If we have a emotionally disturbed person who needs to go to the hospital involuntarily. So it also includes that when there's not an arrest.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep. So again, in 4.5 years, 12. Class 3, the injurious use of deadly force, 0. Class 4, the fatal use of deadly force, 0. In my career here, I don't know of an incident where any of us have ever fired our weapon at another human being. So again, thankfully, we've been able to de-escalate and we've been able to follow policy, and we have not had to use injurious use of deadly physical force or fatal use of deadly physical force. Class 5, the non-injurious use of non-deadly force. That means we used force, but there were no injuries. 88 incidents, or 29%. The class 2 was only 4% of our incidents, but the non-injurious use of non-deadly force, 88 in 4.5 years. So again, it's the documentation that we did have to use force, and I will get into the review of that force as we go along. But again, that's the documentation right there, 88 incidents in 4.5 years. We would hope to have none. We would hope, there'd be, no resisting, no, objection of governmental administration. But again, sometimes in this line of work, you have to use force. And class 6 is brandish, the unholstering of a firearm. That's 13 incidents. We began tracking that, I believe, in 2019 per law E37T. Lieutenant Graham can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the unholstering of a firearm, and that can also be one incident, as you may see in a slide upcoming. Are there any questions on this?
No.
All right, there's the slide I'm talking about. It takes you 2016 through 2020. There's if you go all the way from top to bottom, class 1, 180 total, broken down by year. Class 2, that's the injurious. As you can see, 9 of those were arrest-based injuries. So again, we made over 1,500 arrests, resulted in 9 complaints of physical injury. EDP stands for emotionally disturbed person. And there was, looks like just one that we had with that. Taser, somebody complained of pain after using the taser. But again, there was no protracted injury in that use. And we've never had any type of serious physical injury involving taser or OC, pepper spray. Class 3 and class 4, 0 straight down the line. Class 5, by year, and you will see, most of those are arrests or, as Lieutenant Graham pointed out, emotionally disturbed persons. As I touched on before, those are dangerous calls for law enforcement personnel. Thankfully, the majority of them we're able to handle without having to use force. De-escalation works well for us. But like I said, it's a very uncertain and troublesome call, and we do have to use force from time to time to safely get people where they, get them the treatment that they need, or to, subdue them and stop them from harming themselves or somebody else. Class 6, brandish, as you can see, in 2019, I'll point out, ERPO, that is an extreme risk protection order. You'll see 6 on that incident in 2019. What that is a red flag law. If that sounds familiar to anybody, that is where we initiate, the school initiates, or a family member initiates a proceeding where we have to take guns away from a gun owner. And you want to talk about a dangerous call, that is one. So one incident, we did have a perimeter around a house. There were weapons drawn, thankfully, no shots fired. Everything was, de-escalation was used. And it was another incident that we handled safely and very well. But again, 13 incidents in close to a year. Any questions on the chart?
So Chief, just to make sure I'm clear, we're talking, the total counts 293 out of approximately 1,500 arrests.
No, that's incorrect.
That's okay.
That's very incorrect. The total of about 100.
100.
Yeah, because 180 were us dispatching animals. We didn't arrest them.
I got you. That includes the 293 includes the animals. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
All right. We'll move on to the use of firearms and deadly physical force. General Order 3.01. And we can go to the next slide. As you can see, there have been, several revisions in the last few years. Our purpose: to establish clear guidelines for officers regarding the use of deadly force. Officers of the department have traditionally displayed commendable restraint in resorting to the use of deadly physical force. The irreversible consequences of such force places a responsibility on the department to establish policy which, A, clearly guides personnel in its application, B, maximizes officer safety, minimizes the possibility of injury to innocent persons, and reduces the unnecessary loss of human life to the lowest level consistent with the need for public safety. Next slide, unless there's any questions, that's very clear. The background for our policy: there is probably no more serious act that a law enforcement officer can engage in than the use of a firearm. The occasions for such use are literally life and death situations, which are invariably confusing and complex, affording precious little time for meditation or reflection. It is imperative then that the officer, through training and the absorption of these guidelines, be able to respond quickly, confident that he or she is acting within the limits of department policy. This serves to protect the public from unlawful and unreasonable use of force. At the same time, it enables officers to act without hesitation to protect themselves or another person. Perhaps equally important, it minimizes the second guessing to which the officer is subjected when no such guidelines exist.
Yep, absolutely.
And as I said before, thankfully, we've never had to use deadly physical force against anyone else. In all cases of use of force, only the minimum amount of force necessary to effect lawful objectives in the performance of their duties is authorized. It is the policy of the Yorktown Police Department that deadly physical force may be used to defend the officer or another from what the officer reasonably perceives as an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury when there is no apparent practical alternative. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, again, very, very clear. Our procedure: an officer may discharge a firearm only under the following situations: confrontation situations, to defend the officer or another from what the officer reasonably perceives as an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury when there is no apparent practical alternative. B, animals, like I had said, 180 incidents to kill a dangerous animal or an animal so seriously ill or injured that it should be destroyed to prevent further suffering. All other options should be exhausted, however, and before shooting the animal, all other department procedures governing same must be adhered to. Next slide. Firearms practice. Obviously, we qualify at least once a year, and we go to the range twice a year, and many of the officers go much more than that on their own time. But it's for target practice at an approved range. That means they're not shooting it in their backyards. They're going to ranges and using their duty weapons appropriately and working on their skills. Repairs and maintenance. A firearm may be discharged by a department armorer or firearms instructor or by an officer at the direction of and armorer or instructor to verify and ensure proper working order, but only in a manner and location where safety for all is paramount. Proper working order is not to include accuracy verification, but merely operability. And while I do go through these, I'll have you know that, Lieutenant Graham, he's been our lead firearms instructor for, Jim, how long? How long have you been doing this now?
Well, I've been instructor since '99. I've been the lead since Kurt left in 2011.
So again, you've got a lieutenant who reviews this policy, knows it backwards and forwards. Well, all of us do, but Jim, like I said, as a firearms instructor, and that is not an easy assignment to attain. The score you need to shoot, the test you need to take, and the proficiency you need to demonstrate, it's a difficult qualification to attend, to achieve. And Lieutenant Graham has that, and it's to all of our benefits, from the youngest officer to a grizzled veteran like us, that we have him here. So again, any questions thus far? Okay. All right, use of firearms and deadly physical force, considerations and prohibitions. Juveniles, the use of deadly physical force is based on the officer's reasonable perception of the dangers presented and the person's potential to cause death or serious physical injury, not merely the person's age. Moving vehicles, officers may not discharge firearms at or from a moving vehicle unless deadly physical force is being used against them or other persons present. Are there any questions about this? Okay. Warning shots. No officer shall fire so-called warning shots. You may see that in the movies. That's not real life. Drawing or displaying firearms. An officer shall unholster or display a firearm only if directed by competent authority or there is reason to believe such may be necessary for the safety of the officer or others. Dry firing. That's when you're firing your weapon and it's empty. There's nothing in it. Dry firing a department-owned firearm is forbidden except when authorized by a firearms instructor during training programs. Let's face it, that could be a tragic mistake if somebody's going to dry fire. They think they're dry firing their weapon. So that's why it's a forbidden practice. And it's something that we stress, at our firearms qualifications and during the year. Next slide. Chokeholds and carotid holds. And this was updated in June. Chokeholds, carotid holds, and similar compression of the neck represent use of deadly force in New York State and are prohibited unless an officer or another person is in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury. All officers must be mindful that he or she are subject to New York State Penal Law 121.13-A, which reads that a person commits aggravated strangulation, a Class C violent felony, when he or she, being a police officer, commits the crime of criminal obstruction of breathing or blood circulation as defined in Section 121.11 and causes serious physical injury or death to another person. Is there any questions? Okay, again, very, very, very easy to understand and to take out into the field. Non-lethal and less lethal weapons and equipment. Non-lethal weapons such as batons, tasers, etc., shall be used only as prescribed in departmental training These items or other authorized equipment should not be used in such a way as to represent the use of deadly force unless the officer reasonably perceives such as necessary to repel the imminent use of deadly force against the officer or another. Are there any questions? Okay, next slide. Sanctions. In all cases where an officer's action is determined to be a violation of these rules, but not a violation of law, this distinction shall be made clear in all public discussion of such incidents and in any disciplinary action which may result. An officer found to have acted in violation of this order shall be subject to internal discipline, ranging from reprimand up to including dismissal, in addition to any criminal sanctions which may be imposed in the courts. That was our deadly physical force policy. Again, very, very straightforward, very easy to understand and apply by our officers. And I hope, as you know, as the coalition reads, very, very simple to understand. And I hope it gives everyone a lot of reassurance as to how we go about doing things at the Yorktown Police Department. And the final general order that I will share, again, pertaining to use of force this evening, is the reporting, evaluation, and investigation of the use of force, brandish, and the discharge of weapons. At the Yorktown Police Department, we have a use of force review board. The composition of that board is the operation commander, that's Lieutenant Graham currently, and the division commanders, Lieutenant DiUlio and Lieutenant Foley, who are also present tonight and watching this. The convocation of the board. The use of force review board shall be convened and shall review and evaluate every class of use of force. This evaluation review should take place as soon as practical after the incident and or after the completion of the investigation, depending on the nature of the use of force. However, the evaluation by the use of force review board must take place within 60 days of the filing of the use of force report. So again, so that you understand, and you will see the use of force report, that you will be shown that, but so that you understand, and I think it'll be in subsequent slides, but I do want to take the time to let you know how it happens. If an officer uses force, he's expected and has to complete a use of force report documenting that force. That use of force report goes to his supervisor, a sergeant, who reviews that use of force. If the sergeant has any questions right away or thinks there was a misapplication, he's going to speak to the officer involved in the use of force to get the particulars as to, you know, why it was used, why it was needed, and the results. He's going to include that use of force with any reporting of the incident, the narrative of the report, and then that gets forwarded to the patrol division commander, Lieutenant Foley, and subsequently to the operations commander, Lieutenant Graham, who sees every use of force form and is an additional layer, and the final layer actually, to reviewing those use of force reports. He sits down with the other lieutenants, they go over the use of force reports, and we're making sure that we're doing our jobs correctly. If there's an incident that needs, you know, if we need to sit down with an officer and have a discussion, you know, we do that with the sergeant. And like I said, it's an opportunity to train. It's an opportunity to review any use of force and to, you know, see if it was warranted, to see if we could have done something else, or to say, hey, look, thank you for using such restraint. You know, you did a good job out there. You applied the policy well. It was, you did nothing wrong. Again, it's all encompassing. It's documentation, and it's reviewing, and it's keeping us as the best agency that we can be. And like I said, the data that you're seeing and the lack of injuries that people are suffering, it supports that we de-escalate, and that when we do use force, we document it, and we get people, you know, if they need treatment, they get it. And we do discuss the use of force as an agency. And like I said, that's why you don't see us in the papers all that much for anything abusive. or any brutality incidents. So with that, are there any questions?
No. That's clear.
Okay. The Use of Force Board shall review the use of force to determine whether or not it is consistent with the policy of this department, was objectively reasonable, and conforms to the professional law enforcement standards. The board shall forward its conclusions and recommendations as to policy compliance or non-compliance, as the case may be, and determine if additional training is needed, as I just discussed, or policy changes, or changes in equipment, or other recommended action by majority vote of the board for the disposition to the chief of police. Any board member not in agreement with the majority conclusion may forward written dissenting opinions to the chief of police. In the event the board cannot reach a majority conclusion, both opinions will be forwarded to the chief of police. Excuse me. The operations commander will maintain use of force review records, and the operations commander will see that incidents are reported to DCJS in conformance with 837T of the executive law. So again, now that law went into effect in November of 2019. Excuse me. On our use of force reports, when we do show you that report, you will see in the upper right-hand corner of that use of force report, there is a box to check that the use of force form was sent to the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. Determining the objective reasonableness of force. When used, force should only be that which is objectively reasonable, given the circumstances perceived by the officer at the time of the event. Factors that may be used in determining the reasonableness of force include, but are not limited to, the severity of the crime or circumstances, the level and immediacy of the threat or resistance posed by the suspect, the potential injury to citizens, officers, and suspects, the risk or attempt of the suspect to escape, the knowledge, training, and experience of the officer, officer-suspect considerations such as size, relative strength, skill level, injury or exhaustion, and the number of officers or subjects. Are there any questions?
No.
All right. There's our use of force report, what I was discussing. It was updated in November of 2019 and revised again in April of 2020. So it's very self-explanatory. Date, name, date of incident, type of incident, our blotter, which is our report number, officer name, sex, race, age, location of incident, the name of the subject. It takes you right through it. The newest part that is on there is race. So that is now being tracked. And the sex of the subject, obviously, the class, the use of force classification. To the right of that, the type of force used. So as you can see, there's boxes to check off for firearm, vehicle, baton. I need water, Amanda. Can you get me? Thank you. A taser, a chokehold if it's on there. Like I said, it's pretty, as you can see in the middle of the right hand of the page. That basically tracks the type of force used or displayed. The weapon type, obviously you can see on there service pistol, shotgun, baton, patrol rifle, OC, or other. We have a separate standalone report for taser as well as OC. So it's very, very, like I said, very thorough. The information there, I'm pointing at the screen because I'm looking, I'm sorry, it's a habit of mine. If it's an animal, we're telling you how many rounds were fired, the type of animal, and then for any type of use of force incident, describe incident, all classifications. At the end, the officer signs it, his or her supervisor signs it, and then, as I said, that last layer is the signature, or second to last layer, the signature of the division commander, which usually is going to be the patrol division commander. Once that is done, it's forwarded to Lieutenant Graham, the operations officer, and the finding of the use of force review board. As you can see, on the right-hand side of the screen, that's the back of the use of force report. And with the human body, we actually document the area of the body where an injury was observed or complained of. Any questions?
Could I ask, Chief, the purpose of identifying race or ethnicity, is that for identification purposes?
That was part of the suggestion of Executive Law 837T. Again, we had never done that. I'm not aware of any agency, in Westchester that did, but it is now on the form. So again, now it's one more thing that we can track.
Okay.
And as I said, if you look at the upper right-hand corner of the first page, there's asterisks that say admin only, and there's a checkoff box that says this form was reported to the Division of Criminal Justice Services, the law enforcement portal. So again, we are sharing this information with DCJS.
Very good. Thank you.
Chief, do people know what OC stands for?
Pepper spray, oleoresin capsicum. So OC is pepper spray that we sometimes need to use, thankfully, very infrequently. All right, and well, can we go back to that screen again? The voice you heard chiming in is our PBA president, Tommy Nadorsky, Detective Tommy Nadorsky. Tommy has taught deadly physical force as well as use of force in our agency. He's, we use him as an instructor quite a bit, and he's our PBA president. So again, we want to talk about having another layer there. Yeah. The PBA president of the Yorktown Police Department is a use of force instructor and a firearms instructor.
Very good.
Okay, so are there any questions about use of force?
No.
All right. Now, what I will say, I thought the slide was in here before we move on to this slide, but there is layers that are discussed of use of force. The first layer is de-escalation. We always try to de-escalate when we can. Obviously, there are some situations where that's not on the table, but thankfully, on a lot of issues, it's there. And the data that I've shown you tonight supports that we do de-escalate. And as Detective Nadorsky could tell you, and Lieutenant Graham, we train that way as well, as discussed in our use of force training and at our firearms qualifications and deadly physical force training. The goal is always de-escalation. From there, it is, the next layer is basically, hands-on. It's either physical strength, taser, pepper spray, or baton. And like I said, there's got to be an articulation as to why, that level of force, was utilized.
Right.
And then lastly, once you get through that layer, you're talking about, deadly physical force, which thankfully we have not had to utilize since I've been here. And also, as I stated, in my career here, we've never had to use deadly physical force. So Rabbi Robbie, I think that's what you were alluding to earlier. And I thought there'd be a slide there, but does that answer your question?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure. I didn't want to, like I said, and before we move on to, procedural justice and implicit bias, are there any questions on use of force?
And I also just want to point out, Chief, that your use of force policies have been and remain on your website as well. So if anyone has any questions at any point in time, in addition to, we're going to be obviously sharing this video, but anybody can go back to your YPD website and find your direct policies on these issues, correct?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Actually, the entire policies, and that's when the coalition was formed. I think I sent you everybody an email. If anybody had any questions or wanted to discuss anything with me, and that I asked that you review our use of force, which is on our department website. So very transparent. It's out there for all to see. And I think our 2019 statistics are also in the About Us section on the Yorktown Police Department website, which for anybody watching out there is www.yorktownpd.org. If you go on our department website, it's very easy to navigate. Go to that About Us drop-down window, and you'll see some information there that may be beneficial to you. Any further questions?
Anyone from the panel or the coalition?
I'm good.
Good right now.
Great.
All right.
You continue.
Principled policing. Again, this is part of our in-service training. And we were scheduled to take this in March of 2020.
Okay.
We were taking this before the George Floyd incident and any of the other incidents that ever happened. And then COVID struck. And this is a course that you have to take in person. It does not work. Zoom, virtual, doesn't work. You need to do this in person. And I'm proud to say that our police officer, Keith Fortunato, provided this training as an instructor. And he did an outstanding job. I mean, when he went to the train the trainer and was qualified to give this course, Westchester County actually asked him to give it to other police agencies because he did such an outstanding job as an instructor in the train the trainer program. And the class he gave to all of our members, so that you have a little bit of an idea as to how we train in the police department. It's usually, we have close to, well, we're right about at 60, in uniform, sworn personnel. So we usually break that down into 5 sessions of 12 people in the classroom to train at one time. Maybe more, maybe less. But with COVID, that was off the table. So now, in order to social distance, in the summer as things improved a little bit, we were able to put 6, to scale it down, and have anywhere from 4 to 6 people in the classroom with an instructor and take this training. And I tell you what, it was, he did an outstanding job, and it was very beneficial. And it's something in the future, hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can get back to some degree of normalcy with COVID and this vaccine comes about, and we can all get back to some type of normalcy. But it's a class that I would like to offer, to anybody out there who's interested. If they have 8 hours, on a Saturday that they want to give up and come sit, at town hall or someplace. It was very, very, like I said, I learned quite a bit, and you really dive deep down into, the core of who you are as a person, and it challenged you a little bit. And like I said, I think it was beneficial to our agency. So I'm gonna go forward with this. The Yorktown Police Department participates and has presented classes in procedural justice and police legitimacy. And there is an implicit bias component in this training. The objectives of this class are: define legitimacy and state how to increase police legitimacy, define procedural justice and discuss its benefits, review the relationship between the police and the community, and understand the role history has played in hindering legitimacy in some communities. And as we progress through these slides, I think you'll see that our agency has been, before procedural justice became a thing, we've been doing that in our community. So, Robin, if you could hit the next slide. Training, principled policing, the process and how we get there. Legitimacy, the public view the police are as entitled to exercise authority in order to maintain social order, manage conflicts, and solve problems in the community. Procedural justice, the procedures used by police officers where citizens are treated fairly and with proper respect as human beings. And on these slides, I've just, you'll see some pictures. The pictures you see here are just letters of support from children in the community, as well as some of the support we received from the Huskers for Heroes and other just nice things that were sent our way, during COVID and over the summer. Next slide. Procedural justice as a priority. Primary issue in how a community views police legitimacy. Are police exercising their authority in a fair and just way? Research shows that the procedural justice is more important than the outcome of the encounter. For the most part, a positive or negative outcome does not have an impact on legitimacy. Again, so, it's all about our guys knowing that, hey, sometimes, we deal with the negative, plenty. But if we treat people fairly, compassionately, and listen, people walk away thinking they got a fair shake. That's the goal. Next. The course objectives. Identify implicit bias. Identify sources of implicit bias. Understand the science of implicit bias. Define stereotype, prejudice, discrimination, racism, and explain how these become barriers to procedural justice and legitimacy. Procedural justice again, listening, voice, neutrality, fairness, demonstrate fairness, respect, we treat people with respect, and trustworthiness, explaining the process. Something we're doing here tonight and something we do out in the field very well. Being transparent. What is racism? That was discussed. It's a system of distributing power that privileges one or some racial groupings over others. And listed below you have biases that can be associated. These are categories that were discussed: race biases, gender biases, job bias, disability, age, body size. These were all items that were discussed in our training. Awareness has been shown to actually reduce the impact of implicit bias on behavior. And like I said, I think all of the members of our agency that took this course, they came away with a good awareness. And like I said, it can only improve on the way we police our community and the way we communicate with our citizens. We want to talk about procedural justice. For those of you who have been in town quite a bit, I think in the last few years, you've seen a commitment to getting out there and mixing it up with you and having the community meet the officers, not just roadside when we have to give someone a ticket from time to time, but at a positive place. So these are some photos our Coffee with a Cop events. And we partnered up with, like I said, United for the Troops and, other civic groups that have come to join us at these Coffee with a Cop events. And I think, by and large, like my cops on the street, they tell me that people are asking them, when you doing your next Coffee with a Cop? When are you guys doing that again? That, Councilman Patel asks me every time he sees me when the heck we're doing a Coffee with a Cop. I think he's got a caffeine issue. But I think, he has a good time. And that's what it's all about. It's about, getting out there and, meeting people and letting them ask questions and just, meeting them in a positive environment. And like I said, the nice part about it is, we're doing one tomorrow. We're doing the cones, cops and cones. And there's over 20 of my officers that have signed up. They do this on their own time. They're, the majority of these guys, unless they're working that tour and they stop by to say hello, they're there volunteering their time to come out and meet the community. And listen, I'm not strong arming these guys. I couldn't. They do it because a lot of them are from this community. They're Lakeland and high school, they're Lakeland and Yorktown graduates. They either still live here or have family that do, and they value how we are received in the community. They're proud to work in their hometowns, and they demonstrate that by coming out to events like this. And I tell you what, we all have a good time. It's great meeting new people, get a lot of nice emails from folks who have met our officers at these events. And I just think it shows, a willingness to realize our responsibility, that we're the backbone of this community. That's the way we see ourselves. And, we want everybody out there to be comfortable with members of our agency, that, we're just regular people trying to do a very, very complex job, a job with a lot of uncertainties. And, that we want to get home safe, and we want everybody to get home safe. And, I think events like these, like I said, now it's got a word, procedural justice, but this is a nice proactive thing that we've done the last few years.
Good.
Next slide. One of the things we discussed early on, one of the slides, was a pre-arrest diversion program. Hope Not Handcuffs is our first pre-arrest diversion program. Now, interestingly enough, talked about we were going to do implicit bias, the principal policing training in March. Hope Not Handcuffs, we were ready to roll it out in April. The last meeting that we had before we shut down for COVID in early March was Annette Cars and Hope Not Handcuffs, who came to my department, trained our supervisors, crafted a policy, and we were ready to roll in April. And we just couldn't do it. We severely shut down, our police department to protect everybody from COVID-19. But with the turn of events and realizing that, this is just an excellent program, because the diversion program that we need is, we have an opioid problem in the suburbs, everywhere, just about New York State. And as you can see on the screen, is for people who are struggling with addiction, who really have nowhere else to turn. They need to know that there's a place of safety for everybody in our community, and that's your police department. That goes back to my policy and my belief that the police are your partners. We're your friends. We're not your adversaries. And we can communicate quite well. And, it took a long time. But you have to come to the realization, and people much smarter than me have said it, this is a problem we can't arrest our way out of. Mm-hmm. And if you had told me years ago that, that somebody struggling with addiction could walk in with a pocket full of drugs and turn them in and say, I need help, and we weren't going to arrest them, I would have shook my head at you. But now in 2020, We have to do this. I think everybody knows someone who has lost a friend, relative, family member to addiction. And, we are open 24/7 every day of the year. And overnights, it'd be a little tough, but we would still try to help the person out. But, Hope Not Handcuffs, it saves lives. It restores lives. As I said at that press conference that you see me at, too many times we're meeting, we're dealing with addicts and we're putting Narcan in their noses, hoping to save their lives.
Mm.
Well, now maybe we could save their lives by giving them someplace to turn. Walk into a police department and have us put them in touch with an angel at Hope Not Handcuffs. We think this improves public safety. You know what? A lot of the crimes, you see these crimes of, unlocked vehicles being entered and people losing property, spare change, wallets, computers. A lot of those crimes are committed by addicts. So if we can actually, stem the tide on addiction a little bit, that may be one less incident of 20 people losing property from their vehicles. This program builds police and public health and behavioral health relations. We talked about, Jim, you brought up mental health. A lot of people with addictions have mental health difficulties, and that we can be a resource and try to help them out. Well, we're all about that. And, I'm proud to say that my agency, they're behind it. They're with it. They're with me on this. And it's, quite honestly, it's really not a hard thing to do. It's like I said, showing compassion and empathy and trying to help people out. And it also, moves, hopefully it can move citizens away from the criminal justice system. Maybe a person who gets help with that addiction isn't out there committing crimes. Maybe they're not, going into the jails or anything like that. That's the goal. And that's why I think this pre-arrest diversion program is a winner. We were the first agency in Westchester County to bring it into a police department. And I think in the very near future, you're going to see multiple police agencies adopt this program. I think it's going to spread like wildfire throughout Westchester County. And like I said, I'm proud that we have it here. And, that's not to say that this can be the only pre-arrest diversion program. There may be others out there that may be, applicable. Our agency stands ready to work with the district attorney's office, to work with legal aid, to work with our judges and court system. We're going to be part of the solution. We're committed to that. And like I said, I think what you're seeing here tonight is evidence of that. So again, Robin, you can go to the next slide at this point.
Yeah.
Again, reaching out to our community.
Cuties.
One of the things that I'm proud of was bringing back the canine program, to the town of Yorktown Police Department.
Cute.
You see Canine Dallas. She is the black lab, and Canine Spar, our German Shepherd friend. And like I said, the Yorktown Police Department had a proud tradition since the mid '70s of having canines in our agency. It's a source of pride for our agency. Not only are these dogs valuable members and crime fighting officers, but as you can see, they build that relationship with the public. And, the two guys that we have right now, Officer Tommy Byer and Officer Mike Campion, they're all about that. They get that. They train very hard with these dogs to make sure that, number one, they can do their jobs. But number two, they're all about bringing them out to the public. And like I said, making that communication easy, showing people out there that fair trustworthiness, that we're all about making a positive difference in this community. So again, I think it's wonderful. You see various pictures, Community Day, Officer Byer, classroom, you name it, our law enforcement clubs. These dogs, Dallas will be there tomorrow at at our cops and cones. So if you want to see her, you can come out. Don't give her an ice cream because I can't have her making a mess up at Granite Knolls. But again, they're valued members of our team, and valued members. The community loves them, and it's a great source of us to be able to positively engage with you all out there in Yorktown. Next slide. No Shave November.
Wow.
Every year since 2017, we grow out our beards, mustache. Not so much me, because listen, it's not going to happen for me. I can't grow hair on my head or hair on my face. But you know what? What you should know is that everybody here with a beard and everybody that grows, they donate. They donate. And every November, we give that donation to a family or families that are in need. And usually we find out about those families by the officers going to a house or coming across somebody that needs a little help or a pick-me-up. And we grow them out and we make the donation. I'm proud to say that not only do we do it in November, we do it in December. Those proceeds go to the Unity Tour, our bicycling team that pedals from New York City to Washington, D.C. To raise money for the Law Enforcement Memorial and the National Law Enforcement Museum. And we're proud of that. We're proud of our team that does that 300 miles and goes out there every year and represents our town and our police department with pride. And we did it this past May during COVID-19. We noticed that, the food pantries really needed a little pick-me-up. And we were the recipients of so much goodwill with the community, bringing in food, you name it. I mean, not to make light of it, but for a while, the COVID-19 was something different. It was the weight that we were all putting on from the food that was being delivered to our police department every day. And again, that's that relationship that you build with the community. And it was an amazing thing to see. So in May of this year, we realized we had to give back. And I'm proud to say we donated close to $3,800 to the St. Mary's, the food pantry at St. Mary's. And again, they were blown away. It was something they really needed to restock their pantry. And again, you'll hear me say that I'm proud of the men and women that I work with. That's just, a little part of it right there.
Beautiful. Very nice.
Our scouts, we get a lot of requests from the scouts to speak with them, to come to meetings, and to give them tours of the building. Unfortunately, with COVID, the tours of the building are on standby.
Right.
But we do try to get out there, and meet up with the scouts, their leaders, and thank them, their leaders in our community, all of the scouts. And we try to answer any questions that they may have about law enforcement and what police do in their communities. I'm proud to say that on the picture, the picture below with a young man and Detective Gordonier standing next to a wall plaque, that Eagle Scout donated to us. His Eagle Scout project was he did a history of the Yorktown Police Department. And I mean, you're talking about that began with Ernest Hyatt in 1927, Chief Earl Hawk in the 1930s, all the way up to our most recent hires, Joyce Paliuka and Michael Ewell. That's the history of the Yorktown Police Department. Councilman Diana's name is up there on that wall. He was with us for a while. But again, we've been the recipients of goodwill by Eagle Scouts. We actually have another Girl Scout right now. She's working on a Gold Scout project. That project is positive interactions with police. How appropriate. It was a pleasure to work with this young lady. Her name's Kira Malaspina, and she's working with two of my officers, three actually, Joyce Paliuka, Michael Mattis, and Detective Tommy Nadorski is going to, try to oversee the project. And it's all about you know, how to positively interact, you know, with police. We're hopeful of receiving some simulated training, which is something I'd like for every member of the coalition. I'm going to see if I can get you guys into some simulated training.
Wow.
Situations. You don't shoot, you know, use of force, you know, until you get that adrenaline going and can understand, you know, the positions that we're put in sometimes, you know, it makes it, you get a full appreciation. People who go through that training don't second guess as much. And it's great training. I'm hopeful that we can get you out there at some point this winter.
Good.
Next slide. Here's some of the food and goodwill that we received. Like I said, that the big picture in the middle was Lakeland High School baseball team, who really got jobbed. I mean, I think they had state title written all over it, you know, just like the lacrosse boys in Yorktown. But you know, these guys were good enough to come by and deliver a big tray of food. You know, you see some of the pictures down there, you know, JV hot bagels, Huskers Heroes for Heroes, people baking cakes, you know, with thank you on them, homemade cookies. We were blown away. And, you know, it told us that, you know, we're on the right track here in Yorktown, that we do, you know, provide a valuable service, that we're positive in our community. And, you know, this was not always the case. We weren't getting food deliveries like that. This is something fairly new, and I think it's because we're treating people right out there. Some of the things that our police officers get involved with in the community. You see the stormtrooper there, the Star Wars officer. That was at the Halloween parade that unfortunately I don't think we're going to be able to have this year. But, you'll see the Yorktown Police Department and PBA tent behind them. Below that is a trunk or treat event that you see Sergeant Dillon and Officer Fortunato at. The PBA, a community day up top in the center. And that's Officer Robbie Dorr, our school resource officer at Yorktown High School, with a few students. That Robbie and his mom kind of organized this class, and they won an award at the Grange Fair that year for the vegetables that they planted. And you know, proud of Robbie and Mrs. Dorr for getting that rolling and giving those kids a very, very positive experience. In the upper right, those are some of our Unity Tour team members. You know, from left to right, that's Sergeant Sammy Sansone, Officer Samantha Gilbert, and Officer Dan Kane. They every year they're pedaling to DC and really do a tremendous job of representing us in our community. And that's I'm fortunate enough every year to get invited to the end of Ramadan every year at the Islamic Center. So that's a picture, you know, from there. And like I said, I enjoy that day every year and try to make it a point to get out there. If you invite me, I always try to come. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I tell you what, man, some good food and a lot of laughs. Nice folks.
Good.
Another thing that we try to do since, you know, I became chief, I have to thank, you know, my school resource officers. And again, I mentioned them earlier in our discussion. We can go back to the other one. You know, that was nice. We have law enforcement clubs in both high schools. It gives us a chance to speak with the kids and the kids who are interested in law enforcement. And many of them don't want to be police officers. They just want to know what we do and why we do it in the community. We bring in the, you know, at the end of the year, the county police, our partners, you know, they fly in a helicopter and the kids get to climb, you know, get to see the helicopter and watch it land, take off, ask questions about it. We have the FBI come in. I've had the DEA come in. You know, our canine officers are, and we also do, I believe Detective Swart, Detective Dodorsky, they've done simulated car stops with these kids because let's face it, they're going to be young drivers.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to get pulled over at some point. So what we try to do is we, you know, we do a mock car stop on, you know, how to go about, you know,
beautiful,
you know, what we're experiencing and what they're probably experiencing. And, with that, hopefully, like I said, hopefully the word spreads and, like we get safe, we get out of there safely, in and out. But again, I tell you what, I have to thank Dr. Hatter and Dr. Stone and now Dr. Lyons, who allow us to have these clubs in the high schools, because again, you're giving us the opportunity to write our own narrative.
Yeah.
These kids get to meet their local police. They get to chat them up, ask questions, get a feel for who we are. And it's just, I think it's a wonderful program. It's a program that I'm very proud of. And, I thank, my officers, especially, Larry Panicia, our school resource officer at Lakeland High School, and Robbie Dorr over at Yorktown High School. These guys just they do a tremendous job. Again, here's some of the pictures of our involvement with school. And that's one of the nice things that I enjoy. I mean, I keep advancing in years, but I enjoy being around. But yeah, I enjoy being around, the young adults. We can all learn a lot, and these guys are the future. These, they're writing the narrative right now, so it's nice for me to be around young people. I learned quite a bit. And like I said, these are just some of the events, the photo of the law enforcement club at Yorktown High School. We had close to 80 kids in that club, 80 kids in a law enforcement club, which is amazing. Lakeland High School is always nice. They always, invite me in to come in and visit. The picture on the lower left was at an event that the Yorktown Central School District honored first responders, us, the FD, ambulance corps, and veterans. That was a very, very special night. Last year, you could see Officer Pavlitich behind the mask, very, very excited to go back to school. Just some of the, like I said, the picture of me with the Panis and Lakeland mascots, that was at that car parade at the Jefferson Valley Mall. Since these kids couldn't have a graduation ceremony, our agency was proud to step in and try to make it a nice day for these kids and give them an escort and provide a parade. We did it at Jefferson Valley Mall for the Lakeland High School and Panis High School kids. And we did it on the Yorktown side with a vehicle parade from St. Pat's Church to the high school. And, again, it's our relationship with the schools and with the young adults, in this community. Do we bat 1,000? No. I'm sure you hear stories of, negative stories of us, negative interactions at times. But by and large, we're all about the positive. And there's many more of those incidents than they far outweigh any negatives. Some of the nice things given to us, by our community. You see the autism patch. We're proud every April to participate in Autism Awareness Month. We put those on several of our police vehicles so that you see them throughout town. In the middle, our Montessori, they're awesome. Every week, that police week, they never forget. They always put that sign out there right across from headquarters, and it's greatly appreciated. You can see Thomas Jefferson Elementary School at the top left. They wrote us, thank you cards, keeping our morale up. The Scouts, lower left. The cookies go quick at the Yorktown Police Department. Girl Scout cookies are always a treat. And you can see some of the pictures that are around. Oh, we got rocked by oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. She's awesome though. But she does those rocks, and those were awesome that were left outside our police department. And some nice letters from citizens. Seton School, when they were, unfortunately they're not there anymore. St. Pat's, they're always great to us. And again, it's just about that positive relationship that we have with all of our schools. And as you can see, that wall is not lip service. In those walls, we're a family. And like any family, sometimes we don't get along from time to time, but for the most part, we get it right. And we support each other a lot. Like I said, you won't find a chief of police more proud to be in this position, to lead. and to have people, quality character people, that put on a uniform, put on a vest, wear that badge, with pride, and, go out there in this community and make a positive difference. These are some of the pictures that you see because, one of our police officers is serving his country over in the Middle East, and he wasn't there for his son's first day of kindergarten. So we were there, and, we tried to help out with that. And it was something that, we were very proud to do. And like I said, in our family, no one fights alone. And, we challenge each other and we support each other. And like I said, I would tell the community out there, you've got a good thing. I mean, this police department is, it really is
ideal,
unbelievable. It's a positive. I struggle for words sometimes, but again, it's only because I enjoy going to work every day, and I'm not BSing anybody. I enjoy working with the men and women that I get to work with, and I've been in a position to hire many of them since 2005. And, I'm proud to say that we've gotten it right a lot, and the town and the community benefits.
Great.
And I think that's about it. That's my presentation tonight. I know we covered a lot of material, and if there's any questions that you may have, that's why I'm going to, I'll sit here and listen to any questions. If there's anything else that you want me to, to go over, but that's, like I said, we covered 5 out of the 6 bullet points that you had earlier there, Supervisor, and those are things that we had to cover.
Yes.
In the next next community coalition, I'm going to bring to you. We'll discuss. How we go about. Some of our training and our how we hold each other. Accountable as well. Our personnel complaint investigations. As you will see in some of the 203 items. Some of them don't pertain to Yorktown. Some of them pertain to, cities or, larger cities that have, some issues of trust between the community and the police department. That being said, I wanted to focus on the issues that pertain, to Yorktown. And that being said, I'll discuss just about anything with anybody, but in order to comply with Executive Order 203, these were the issues that I had to really dive deeply into, and that's what I wanted to bring to bear tonight.
And I think you did just a fantastic job, Chief. And I want to thank you. I know how much effort and time you invested into preparing for tonight. I know how much you genuinely care about not just your department, but the town, and you take these things to heart. And I think that we saw that as a product of what you presented to us as a coalition. Just an enormous amount of information. I think the data and the stats are astounding, quite frankly. But I want to open it up to the coalition to see if anyone has any comments or questions about what we saw tonight. And again, keeping in mind that our focus is the town of Yorktown and the town of Yorktown Police Department. So if anybody we're going to go to the coalition, and then I'm going to go over to some of our elected officials, and then we'll go to some of our invited participants for some statements. So Jim, you got a question?
Thanks, Chief. You did a nice job with that presentation, and you guys have done quite a bit of, done a really good job. You have an opportunity. I think this whole thing is an opportunity for amazing things to come, because we're not just watching and judging now, but we are setting ourselves up for what comes in 5 years, 10 years after, you decide to hang it up for whatever. But I did have a question regarding the training. You said you do the firearms training yearly. Do you do a number of these other trainings yearly?
Yes.
Okay. Just because I can see, like,
at the next at our next meeting, not the listening session, but yes, this session. What I want to provide to this task force are the training hours and some of the training topics that we train in. As I said before, Lieutenant Graham, he's on here, he's an instructor. PBA President Tommy Nadorsky, he's an instructor. Lieutenant John DiUlio at the time, he was an instructor. I mean, even Lieutenant Foley, I believe, may have instructed. But again, the training that we annually, it is as much or more, I think, than any other agency. With accreditation, the minimum standard, I believe, is 21 hours on certain topics. Basically, you're talking about 3 months out of the year. You have to do first aid, firearms, use of force. Those are your what's mandated. That's the minimum. Prior to COVID, we have an in-service training 10 months out of the year, basically. July and August, when a lot of the officers are on vacation, we don't train over the summer. But by and large, we're training 9 to 10 months. December is tough sometimes, but at least 9 months out of the year, there is some type of in-service training going on. And that is, what your specialty. We deal with crisis intervention, dealing with, emotionally disturbed people, firearms, use of force, first aid, hazardous conditions, EVOC, which is safe driving a motor vehicle safely. Jim, JD, feel free to jump in. I'm leaving out some other topics that we do because we train, on so many topics. And the nice thing that we do is we have staff meetings, and at these staff meetings with the supervisors, we always ask our personnel, what training do you want? What can we get for you? And that's where having a young police department, as we do right now, we're getting some new ideas and we're getting feedback, and it only benefits all of us. So, Jim, I'm going to bring some of the topics the next time. I just didn't think we had enough time, tonight with the use of force, but those are things that, I'm proud to discuss, and I think would put the public's mind at ease, as I would hope occur tonight as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions from the coalition?
Well, I have one comment, if I may.
Yes, Rosemary.
I remember Robbie Dorr when he was very little. What happened?
Did he have a long stick in his hand?
His mother used to bring him to the soccer matches with our girls, and my goodness, it was just a little tiny little thing.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, he's doing a hell of a job over at Yorktown High School.
Good.
Any other members of the coalition? Rabbi Robbie, I don't know if you have any additional questions, or Tony or Liz. No? Okay. Then we won't belabor the point. We'll go over, we've got several of our local elected officials with us tonight. Councilman Diana or Councilwoman Roper or Councilman Lachterman, would you like to ask a question or provide a statement?
I just want to say great job, Chief. As you know, I'm not as intimate with your department as Tom Diana, but do have a family member who served on it. And you know what, you guys have just done nothing but stay ahead of the curve. And this is what community policing is about. It makes me proud to be a part of Yorktown, and I thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Councilman Roker?
Yeah, I do have a question, Chief, but let me make the statement first. I knew you were good, but just watching you and the lieutenants who are here with you tonight, I am so honored to be in this community. I don't know what other words I could say. I am honored. And I knew this was valuable for our community at large to hear and to see what you guys do. But I did have a question, and it's only a follow-up to something you said. You said, I've got a few ideas about mental health, having someone help you with mental health.
Yes.
Do you want to give us those?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to date myself. In the mid to late 90s, when I was, working on the road and answering the calls that my police officers are now answering, there was a mobile crisis unit that was a little more local and accessible than the mental health assistance that we are receiving now. As I told Jim before, we have a liaison at St. Vincent's, but it would take a while for them to get up here if they were going to come up here, and minutes and seconds are precious when you're dealing with a situation that could be volatile, unstable, and unpredictable. So you hear a lot of talk about social workers or mental health professionals, and I think they can help us, but when you're talking this talk about defunding, it can't come at the expense of police. That would be a big mistake.
Absolutely.
If it's if it's of that much value, which I think it can be, you got to find a way to make that happen. And if you really want to put your money where your mouth is, globally, nationally, if you want to try to decrease these situations, say, okay, we want a mental health professional. I can only speak from my own experience, and my lieutenants, can as well. I know Jim and JD can, because they were up here when we had that mobile crisis unit. Those mental health professionals wanted us there. And if they felt good, they were like, all right, guys, we're good. You can wait outside, or you could wait out in the driveway, and we were good. But, by and large, we were on scene while they were there, unless it was, if it was like a dementia or an elderly type thing where, they could handle it. But if you were talking about anything with volatility, and a lot of times, like I said, it's unpredictable, you needed the police there. We need to work in tandem if that is going to happen, if you're going to have best practices and best results. So this nonsense that you hear about defunding is just, it's rhetoric, it's irresponsible. And, in a rational and educated society, you don't do that with the police. Find a way, if it's of value, to make it happen. And you know what? If you do make it happen, that mental health professional or that worker that wants to work with us, I'd welcome them with open arms. If they can make my guys' jobs easier out there, keep my officers safer, keep the public safer, well, let's make it happen.
It sounds like you shared service.
It was a county service, I believe, right, Chief?
Oh, the county's got to fund that. Either the county or the state. Like I said, with the executive orders, it can't be an unfunded mandate. If you want real results, you gotta, you have to find some funds somewhere to make it happen.
I don't think any elected official or appointed official would ever consider defunding the police.
No, it's ridiculous. But again, that's, I'm glad you brought that up, Alice. I really am, because we covered a lot of things. Lord knows I have, and I'm really happy you brought that up, because that's, like I said, that's an idea that I think is worth trying to make happen.
Okay.
Another idea, like I said, we've got that pre-arrest diversion program, Hope Not Handcuffs, which I think is very, very applicable up here in northern Westchester and throughout Westchester County. But if there are other diversion programs, we're open to cooperating and communicating, like I said, with the courts, with like I said, any other law enforcement agencies, with the DA's office. Listen, man, if there's a way, the goal is not to arrest, not to use a, you know what I mean? It's right. If everybody, we're a nation of laws. If follow the law, and just there's got to be a way. Like, we're talking locally, so I don't want to stray.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll try to do locally what we can do best. But you know, that's why I'm glad we could do this in this manner, because it seems like all you're hearing out there is arguing and people talking over each other and people trying to get the best sound bite or you know, and it's all about finding solutions. And you know, that's what this panel is about, and that's why you know, I think this process can be positive.
And that's a thing that we can take back to the county as a board at the appropriate time, or to the state at the appropriate time, if that's something that the coalition wants to recommend to the board, and then the board can act accordingly. I want to bring in Councilman Diana, Tom Diana. Councilman, do you want to have a question for the chief or a statement that you'd like to make?
Just a statement, Chief. Once again, kudos. Great job, and to the lieutenants and detective that trains our guys. You dated yourself, and I'm really going to date myself. Okay. I went back. I go back to the mid '80s with the Yorktown Police Department, and even at that point, we were trained on a regular basis, such as the structure and schedule that the chief has talked about now, on many of the same subjects. You had your use of deadly physical force, your firearms, your first aid, and so on and so forth. I only wish that we had some of the programs now that they have. As far as I'm concerned, we have the best trained police department in the county. Our officers are second to none. I had never seen in my years with the Yorktown PD any problems that were unable to be handled basically by talking. The ones that were not handled by talking were combatants anyway.
Yeah.
But there was never, even going back to, here I go again, Chief, the 80s, there was never any deadly physical force, displayed. You did what you had to do. And one of my training officers back then said, you can get a heck of a lot more done with your mouth than you can with your fists. So try to talk the situation out first. He says, rise to the occasion, because if you start out high, you can't go back low. Chief, detective, lieutenants, keep up the good work, because I'm there with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, I'm going to go over to some of our invited community partners and participants. I see that we have Diego from Yorktown for Justice. Diego, do you care to provide a brief statement based on tonight's discussion?
Yeah, I'd actually like to open with two questions. First, a statement, and then a brief personal statement, two questions, and conversation pieces as we move forward through this process. And then I'd like to read the prepared statement. So, Chief Noble, thank you. Had the pleasure of meeting with you when we were doing the walk. And,
absolutely, Diego.
Actually, it was great to see my son as part of the slideshow. He can't wait to meet with you again.
You coming for ice cream tomorrow or what?
We'll talk about it. Yeah, I think we'll get Mom on board and make that happen. So one of the things, I think you are proactively dealing with use of force. Maybe we could talk about how the training ties into those proactive modifications of the use of force and what we're equipping our officers with in terms of adjusting their methodologies. I think that might be informative. Two, I would like to learn a little bit more about the reporting process. We don't bat 1,000, right? We bat 998. In those instances where it's not completely 1,000, is there a methodology for a citizen to report something and, maybe 60 days, if it was a bad experience? I'd like to discuss that with you and get your thoughts on that and see if maybe there's a little bit of improvement there. If you don't mind, I'd like to pivot to the prepared statement.
Yep.
So I introduced myself before. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a co-chair of Yorktown for Justice. Very thankful to Supervisor Slater, the town board, and Police Chief Noble for welcoming our participation and extending the invite. Yorktown for Justice envisions this coalition as a group that will go above and beyond to learn and represent the interests and experiences of everyone who passes through the four walls of Yorktown. We do hope for a full 360 review of the policing process, which you've laid the groundwork for very well, Chief Noble, in this town, and would like to ensure the feedback is inclusive and holistic, and I think we'll get to that as well. In order to fully understand the interactions and the feedback of the community, we'd like to discuss a mechanism for providing anonymous feedback, and I think that kind of ties into the question I asked before. We believe that this would help identify any needs or improvements by the police department, especially the ones that would be most impactful to our community. I think, Chief Noble, you said before that any type of feedback is an opportunity to learn and grow, and we want to make sure that we get the most out of this process with you. And this is for your information at least, and then we could discuss anything else from there. But I want you to have the information. In line with that goal, we'd like to help to provide the Yorktown Police with any tools or training that would, that they would need to meet the needs of the Yorktown residents. The way that I think about it, and a little bit selfishly, is growing up close by in Mayapack, I was excited to move to Yorktown, not just because I actually have a chance of winning a lacrosse championship now, but also I heard great things about the police department and you, Chief Noble. I have a mom who is involved with the county judge, and she had nothing but glowing reviews of you, and she doesn't say a nice thing about anyone really. So tell her I said that. But I think about my worst day growing up as a minority who came from impoverished means, and it was, I think, probably a little bit more difficult. Just with kids and how kids are. And I'm thankful that I grew up in a community and with a police department that was able to meet those needs and help support me. And I think about my worst day, and I want to make sure that a police officer's worst day, and if those two things happen and they interact with each other, that they both feel that they're heard and respected. And I think you were speaking to that. And I think a lot of the points you brought up were kind of being accepted by the community. So I want to make sure that that's something we revisit on. Yorktown for Justice stands ready to assist you in this work. We intend to remain engaged with this coalition during its entire lifespan. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Diego. Appreciate it. I do want to add, if I can, there was a question at the town board meeting about anonymous feedback for the coalition. We did create an email address, ccse@yorktownny.org. So if anyone wants to provide any anonymous feedback for the coalition, they can submit an email or not just anonymous feedback, but written comment can be directed there. If they wish for it to be anonymous, we can redact their information or any identifiers before circulating it to the coalition. So I do want to make a point that we have set up a mechanism to address that, and so I encourage anyone who feels the need to provide any written comment or anonymous written comment to utilize that avenue, which is available. It's also on the town's website under the coalition's web page. I'm going to go over to another one of our community partners and participants, and that's the Yorktown PBA. We have with us the president, who was introduced earlier, Detective Tom Nadarski. Detective Nadarski, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation tonight?
Getting late, Matt. Gotta get going here.
It's early. Come on. Last night, Tuesday's town board meeting went for another hour. We can go another 4 rounds here.
No. I got to work at 7 a.m. tomorrow.
I wave a white flag.
Yeah, just about. I'll keep it short. Just a quick introduction. I started my career in 1989. Talking about dating yourself, Tommy. I became a police instructor in 1994 and haven't stopped since. I was a sergeant for 9 years. I was on a SWAT team in the city of Albany for 8 years. I spent 17 years in the city, and I've been here since 2006. I've been a firearms instructor for nearly 25 years. And Chief, you mentioned larger city training and the things that happen in larger cities. Coming from a larger city, we didn't have the training that we have here. I came here in 2006 and was exposed to the monthly training and the type of training that we got, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, they spent a lot of time on training here. Why are we doing all this? And then I quickly realized that it was necessary. The attitudes of the officers in a smaller community are a whole lot different than the officers in the big city. And that's no judgment on them. We not only get training at the department, but we have hundreds of hours of offsite training throughout the state that the chief sends us to. And the list just goes on and on and on about the type of training that we do have. Diego, you talked about the methodology that we use in the use of force. That has been an evolving topic for the 30 plus years that I've been on the job. It changes constantly with the times that are changing, and we react to the situation and we adjust our policies on a regular basis. We always want to do the right thing. Like Chief said, we haven't had a shooting here in Yorktown. That being said, in the past 20 years, New York State alone has lost 465 police officers. They have been killed in the line of duty. So our training is very important to us, not only to protect the public, but to protect ourselves. We have a long way to go. I encourage the public to, if you see a police officer, walk up and talk to him. You get a firsthand dealing with that guy, and you'll see what he's all about and what the Yorktown Police stands for. I absolutely encourage you to do that, no matter where you are. I'm here to assist you with any questions that you guys might have on the use of force or the trainings that we have. I've been involved in it since I walked through the door in 2006. I have a lot of knowledge, but a lot of these guys, we work together as a team to put training together. And yes, Rosemary, if you want to do some munitions training, I would be happy to.
I'd love to. I would love to.
And it would be a lot of fun.
Just let me make one comment. I have skirts older than some of you guys, so.
I'm a lot older than I look, Alice, or Russ.
Okay.
So with that,
Hair dye.
What's that?
Hair coloring.
Yeah, no. So I look forward to an open dialogue with all of you and with the community. Our job is to get better. We're not oblivious to that. We're very open-minded to it, and we look forward to listening to all of you and making some good, positive changes.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
We appreciate your participation. We appreciate your service to our community. And to your point, I think that this is all geared toward fostering a dialogue where we can see both sides and make sure that if there are things that that need to be addressed, that we do it in a very responsible and proactive manner. And so that really concludes this first session of the coalition. Our next meeting will be a listening session. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what that means. So that really is where we're asking the public, we're asking our community partners and invited participants to provide feedback to us. It's going to be run similarly to how we run courtesy of the floor during town board meetings. We're going to ask that you register with the town clerk to speak, and it's going to be done in a very organized fashion. But this is open to the public. It's open to the public of Yorktown to provide positive feedback, questions, negative feedback, however you feel so moved, based on the discussion that we are having here, and it's the coalition's task to take that feedback and try to, if there are any shortfalls that are identified, that we openly discuss it and come up with a remedy for those shortfalls, and so that's our next step in the process here. Following the 22nd meeting, when we meet again in November, the chief will come back with another presentation, which he's already kind of given us a preview on about some of the things he's going to discuss, and we will also discuss as a coalition some of the feedback that we received during the previous listening session. But I do genuinely want to thank everyone for participating tonight. Again, as I stated earlier, there is a specific email address, the ccse@yorktownny.org. If anyone in the public would like to submit an email, a written statement, written comment, question, that is available avenue for you to do so. You can also contact my office directly, 914-962-5722, extension 200. And you can also always email me directly at mslater@yorktownny.org. Of course, anything related to matters of the coalition will be shared with the coalition appropriately, and for dissemination and discussion. So again, I want to thank all the members of the community who turned out tonight, all the members of the community who are serving on the coalition, and I genuinely want to thank the Yorktown Police Department for their incredible service to this community, for keeping us safe, and to our chief. Just another great job in your presentation tonight. Again, reflecting all the effort that you put in on a daily basis. And I think that anyone who's interacted with your police department, I think, recognizes that passion from your presentation tonight. So I do want to thank you for all you've done. Thank you. So. And with that,
thanks, Supervisor. If I could jump in real quick.
Yeah, please, absolutely.
If any members of the coalition have any questions that I can answer for them that they may not have thought tonight, they can certainly email me or call me. I think I gave you all that information.
Yep.
And, with your compliments, I've got to pass along, like I said, whether it's Detective Dodorsky, Lieutenant Graham, Lieutenant DiUlio, Lieutenant Foley, who are all on this call, and anybody at my agency, like I said, you surround yourself with good people and good things happen. Right. And like I said, I'm blessed to be surrounded by the best. And let's keep it rolling, and we'll see where this takes us. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for your participation tonight and for your support. And like I said, look forward to the next meeting.
And we will reconvene October 22nd. So thank you, Yorktown. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you,
Yorktown. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.